So guys, this bank holiday weekend has not disappointed so far. Loads of action to talk over. Let's jump into it. So guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Loads of talking points to go through today. As well as that, we'll also be making our predictions for tomorrow's game, so do get them in the comments down below. As always, if you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do check out the Patreon link that is down below. And just before we do get into talking about any of the games, let's take a look at the current standings of the prediction league. As you can see to the side of me, it's still Championship Pro who is leading the way in the main prediction league, but finally I've managed to make my way in there. I've been battling it in and around League One for quite some time now, but I do currently sit 19th in the main prediction league after having a decent game week myself. This is how the League One table is currently looking like, so a fair few people have dropped out of that main prediction league, but still very close to getting back into it. But a massive shout out has to go to Joe Molyneux, who sat 16th in this league at the moment, having a huge game week, picking up 21 points. And then finally, this is how the League 2 prediction league is currently looking. Things still incredibly close, so if you want to get yourselves onto that prediction league, make sure to get your score predictions down below for all of Monday's games. But without any further ado, let's jump into talking about some of these games. And so let's start out at Bournemouth. They beat Middlesbrough by 3-1, and in many ways this has been the perfect weekend of football so far for Bournemouth. Both Reading and Barnsley dropping points this weekend with those two playing each other. Cardiff dropping points behind them as well with them losing, and Bournemouth are now in a position where the playoffs is back in their hands. They've got a game in hand on both Barnsley and Reading, and should they win that game, they would go up into 5th place with them having a superior goal difference to both Barnsley and Reading. 1 point separates them from the top 6 at the moment. Now, in many ways, Bournemouth were the most threatening side moving forward in this game. Goals for Billing, that one set up quite nicely for him to hitting it at the near post. Jefferson Lerma's goal, which took a slight deflection, and then Dom Solanke at the second time of asking. They were the side who had that bit more quality moving forward. I mean, Borough had their chances here and there, but they were a little bit more few and far between. The Watford goal, by the way, was expertly taken. Lovely touch to take it out of his feet, and then the second one to drag it across the goalkeeper. Looking back at each of the Bournemouth goals, could Bettinelli have done better with each of them? Potentially. I went and looked at the Championship goalkeeper stats in terms of save percentages for goalkeepers so far this season. Out of the 32 goalkeepers who have featured in the league so far this season, in terms of save percentage, Bettinelli is 27th in the league with a save percentage of just 65.8%, which compared to some of the other goalkeepers who are currently playing for sides in and around the top 6, it doesn't really stack up in terms of the quality in that regard. So yeah, maybe question marks to be asked there, but in the end I thought the Bournemouth were deserving of the 3 points. Next up then to Ashton Gate, and it was Stoke who got the better of Bristol City in this one, 2-0 in the end. I predicted a goalless draw coming into this game, sheerly because, I mean, Bristol City's home record was really quite poor going into this game. That's been continued, but Stoke's away record quite similarly. You know, they hadn't won away from home since the start of December, but fully deserving of the 3 points in the end. What we saw more from in Bristol City in this game was their inability to craft out any real clear-cut chances, and this has been a bit of a problem for Bristol City all season, to be honest with you, stretching back to right at the start of the year under Dean Holden. Now, for Stoke, we sort of mentioned in the preview to this one, if you want to stop Stoke, you need to stop Nick Powell. His importance to this Stoke side, I don't think, can be underestimated. He's now scored 12 goals for this season and has contributed towards 27% of the goals that Stoke have scored this season, which is a crazy number considering he's playing in midfield. But yeah, what he's really good at is making those late runs into the box. That was on display for the first goal. Bit of a mix-up in the Bristol City box for the goal, but he keeps his composure to finish it at the second time of asking. And the second goal, dispatched by Stephen Fletcher, quite an inventive free kick, lovely finish. And Stephen Fletcher, actually a massive player for Stoke to have back now. Obviously did miss their last few matches through injury, but yeah, got himself back up to fitness throughout the international break and fully deserving of the 3 points in the end. Like I say, they defended well when they needed to in the second half. They had less of the ball, but Bristol City never really looked that all too threatening. Next then to Cardiff up against Nottingham Forest, and you can't help but feel like this was a bit of an opportunity missed here for Cardiff, especially with, like we mentioned in the Bournemouth game, both Barnsley and Reading dropping points. But Forest really deserving of this one, especially off the back of that first half showing. Some really nice moves going forward. The goal sort of epitomised that. It was a lovely strike in the end from James Garner. Cyrus Christie setting him up, and he just absolutely smashes it into the back of the net. We mentioned a few videos ago how important he actually is to this Forest side, but one thing that Chris Hughton really deserves credit for, Nottingham Forest are not a team that you want to fall behind against, because they are a team who is able to just grind out the result. You know, that's what we sort of saw in the second half. In terms of some of the plays that Forest were having in terms of going forward and stuff, that wasn't always on show for the second 45 minutes, but they showed their resilience. Having Joe Worrell back in that back line was quite important. And another thing actually, in Nottingham Forest's last 21 league games, they've only conceded more than one goal twice in their last 21, which is a huge testament to how structurally good they've been lately. But yeah, like we mentioned before with Cardiff, they upped the tempo a little bit for the second half, but that equaliser just never came for them. Next up then to Derby up against Luton, and a massive result for the home side here, which edges them closer to survival. Now, we sort of mentioned going into this one, the first goal was always going to be massive with Luton's sort of lack of away goals this season, but how many points they've actually accumulated on the road. That opening goal for Derby was absolutely massive. Lewis Sibley with a lovely ball in from the right hand side, playing in that more advanced position off the right today. It was a lovely ball in, and then Wycombe actually does quite well to steer the ball into the path of Gregory, who has a tap in to make it 1. Luton had a couple of chances on the break in that first half. David Marshall did really well to save one from Adebayo especially. You know, you'd probably expect him to score with how well he's been doing for Luton lately. But yeah, from breaks moving forward, Luton were certainly a threat. And the second goal for Derby probably comes at a good time in the match for them actually. Really early on into that second half, they managed to stamp their authority on this one. Tom Lawrence with a bit of trickery wins the penalty, and then Shinnie tucks it away quite well. Derby's midfield I thought was looking quite good for this one, looking back at the highlights and stuff like that. Bird and Shinnie looked like a decent partnership between them, and they managed to, you know, manage this game and see it out for the 3 points in the end. So massive result for Derby there, especially with the way that the results had tailed off slightly lately. David Marshall played well back in goal for them as well. An all-round good weekend. And next up to the den, we have Millwall beating Rotherham by 1-0. How big could that penalty miss be for Rotherham come the end of this season? But yeah, quite the interesting game actually. Millwall gave it a really good go, especially after the red card. It was Jed Wallace's pace who caught out Richard Wood. He was sort of left in a tough position really. Tried to sort of do anything to put Jed Wallace off. In the end he catches him, brings him down outside the box and is shown the red card. But the real stand-up performer here for Millwall, Bartosz Białkowski, how good was he in there? He made one unbelievable reflex save in the first half, and obviously the penalty save in the second half. In the end it was Jed Wallace with the only goal of the game. A lovely strike by the way, top bins in at the near post, and Millwall probably should have made it more than one in the end. But yeah, they got a massive get out of jail free card with Białkowski saving the penalty. And to be honest, it wasn't all too bad of a penalty. Like, Smith hits it quite well, but for Białkowski to get down to his bottom corner as quick as he did with how big of a goalkeeper he actually is, yeah, massive performance from him there, and a great result for Millwall. But for Rotherham, like we say, how big could that penalty miss be come the end of the season? After that we then head to Deepdale, and Preston drawing 1-1 with Norwich thanks to a last minute equaliser. I'm happy that I managed to call this one in the end, but in other circumstances, I mean, Norwich could have been well out in front by the time we scored our equaliser in this one. To be honest, I thought that Preston actually started out the game fairly brightly. Emile Rees had one unbelievable chance when he was put through on goal. Just needs to put it either side of Tim Krul. In the end, he just hits it at the goalkeeper. Emile Rees is an interesting player because he's someone who always sort of finds himself in those 1v1 situations. Just needs to brush up on that finishing. Whether it's a confidence thing or not, I'm not so sure, but there's definitely scope to mould him into a really good goal scorer, but that's the area of his game where he does need to improve. And in the end, it was a few minutes later Buendia scores the opener for Norwich, and what a goal, by the way. You know, as North End, we can't allow a player of Buendia's brilliance to have that much space and time on the edge of the box, but takes it with his weak foot, just finesses it into the far post. It's a lovely finish in the end. And I mean, the real player who could have wrapped this one up for Norwich is Teemu Pukki. On another day, he could have had 3-4 goals at least. You know, he had several one-on-ones which he just dragged wide. He hit the crossbar as well in the second half. It just wasn't his day in front of goal, and from North End's point of view, it was all about sort of staying in the game for as long as we possibly could, and maybe we get that one final chance towards the end. I thought that we were decent with the subs we were bringing on. You know, we were quite proactive with trying to implement a bit of a change in the game, and in the end it was Brad Potts off the bench. Lovely ball in by Ryan Ledson, and Potts still has quite a fair bit to do actually. Takes the ball down quite well, holds off his man, gets his shot away. I know in the end it does take a bit of a deflection, which probably wrong foots Tim Krul a little bit, but you can see by the scenes at the end what it sort of meant to North End to get back into the game. So yeah, very much a bit of a smash and grab in terms of us picking up a point here, but hey, I'll take that every day of the week. Next up then, to QPR 3, Coventry 0. A really damning result this one for Coventry down near the foot of the table, and we'll talk about the implications of that in just a second. But we really need to give QPR some credit here. They were absolutely dazzling moving forward, and I know that we picked him out several times on the channel lately, but Stefan Johansson's just at another level, isn't he? QPR have to move heaven and earth to do everything they can to try and get him on a permanent next season, because yeah, it was another dazzling performance from him in midfield. He just runs the show. 6 key passes from him in this game, but from a Coventry point of view, everything that could have possibly gone wrong for them defensively happened in this game. They can see the first goal after 2 minutes, the second goal's an own goal, and the third one, Morosi has an absolute howler with it. They went with Matty Godden up front. You know, that was something that we questioned. You know, has he built up his fitness to get back into this Coventry side now? Well, yes, but their attacking intent once again was near next to nothing, to be honest with you. With Birmingham winning this weekend especially, that puts Coventry in a really dangerous position now. And looking at their fixtures between now and the end of the season, this one against QPR was a game that I picked out to think that maybe Coventry could get something from this one, but for them to lose in the fashion that they did, yeah, some real alarm bells are going off at Coventry at the moment. Next up then to Watford up against Sheffield Wednesday, and it's been a good weekend for Watford so far, hasn't it? In the end, the goal goes down as a Tom Lee's own goal. Originally, it was ruled out by the linesman. He thought that Isaac Success had a touch on it, but no, it was Tom Lee's with the own goal in the end. Nice ball put in by Ismail Assar. I mean, Watford's recent run has been absolutely impeccable. 10 wins in their last 11 championship matches I mean, that sort of form has managed to really establish this gap that Watford have in second place at this point in time. Wednesday, I mean, falling behind in the fashion that they did, it was always going to be tough for them to get back into the game. I don't think by any extent Watford were necessarily at their best in this one in terms of a performance, but I mean, to get the 3 points in the end is all that ultimately matters. Wednesday's best chance to get back into the game probably fell to Jordan Rhodes. It was at the back post, took it first time. In the end, his shot was blazed over the bar, but yeah, some standout performance from Watford. I think that Troost Ekong and Siralta are starting to form a really good solid partnership between them at the heart of defence, and another clean sheet, another win for Watford. What's not to like at the moment? For Wednesday, it leaves them 7 points away from safety at the moment, and with the matches now running out, that's a real tall order for survival from this point onwards, I think. Next up then, we had Wycombe beating Blackburn by 1-0, and a really poor showing here from Blackburn. I thought that prior to the international break, we started to see a few sort of signs of improvement from Blackburn. That point against Norwich, but in this game, right back to square one. Really poor showing here, but credit to Wycombe, they switched up their system a little bit, and I mean, from now until the end of the season, they're going to continue to battle out in these sort of matches, and if a team isn't 100% going up against Wycombe, they will punish you. You know, I found that myself as a Preston fan a couple of weeks ago, but it's another pinpoint cross from Joe Jacobson for the only goal of the game. Onyedema gets on the end of it to make it 1-0 to Wycombe. Blackburn, I think they had about 77% possession in the second half, but ultimately never really were able to craft out many clear-cut opportunities, and if they did, David Stockdale was on hand to save Wycombe. So yeah, from a defensive point of view, Wycombe excellent in the second half. They sat on that lead really effectively. For Blackburn, I mean, it's such a contrast to the start of the season when they put 5 goals past Wycombe. Something's clearly wrong with them, because their run since the turn of the year has been absolutely dismal. Next up then to the battle for the top 6, we had Barnsley up against Reading at Oakwell, and this game didn't disappoint. Loads of talking points to go through. In the end, like we've sort of mentioned before, the point probably most suits Bournemouth actually, who are putting themselves back into pole position for making the top 6 come the end of this season. But Reading, I thought, played the first half quite well, to be fair to them. They defended fairly well when Barnsley had their moments going forward. The goal comes from Rinamota's ball over the top. Lovely first touch from Ovie Ejaria, and he slots that one away quite nicely. Reading could have taken the lead before that as well, with Yaku Meite's chance which he blazed over the bar. But second half performance, I mean, Barnsley really upped the levels moving forward, but Reading made several mistakes in this one. I mean, the penalty first of all that they gave away, and the add-on, really silly. It was a needless foul in the end to grab sort of around the neck of Callum Stiles, and then obviously Alex Mowat tucks that penalty away. Barnsley are pressing for the winner, but Reading are gifted with the golden opportunity to wrap this one up, and Lucas João, I think this one has to go down as the miss of the season. We actually picked out Lucas João in the preview to this game, and we sort of spoke about his form, which has fallen off lately. That's now just 2 goals in his last 11 matches for Reading. I don't know, is it a confidence issue at the moment? Because he's not hitting those same levels that he was at the start of this season when Reading were, you know, absolutely by far and away the most clinical side in the league. They're nowhere near those levels at the moment. Barnsley nearly go on to win it near the end as well, as Raphael spills a ball which comes into the box. But in the end, finishes as 1-1. I still think it's Barnsley who are in the much better position to make the top 6 come the end of the season with the games that each side has coming up. that's got to feel like a massive missed opportunity there for Reading, because like I say, with Barnsley and the games they have coming up, the point advantage they already have, I still think they're looking alright for the playoffs. But that was our last game on Friday to talk over. We had Birmingham beating Swansea by 1-0, a huge result both at the top and bottom of the Championship. Swansea's tail off in form continues for another game week, and for Birmingham, my opinion, might start to be turning on them. I think that Lee Bowyer really does have this group of players up for it, obviously. The initial penalty in the first half is saved by Freddie Woodman. We don't actually see ultimately goalkeepers sort of like sticking it out and staying down the middle, but fair play to him. Djukovic misses that one, and then obviously Hogan wraps it up late on in the second half. Dodgy penalty, I will admit that, but what a lot of other people will obviously point towards is Swansea had some of those decisions go their way lately as well, so those things maybe sort of balance them out. But even disregarding that late penalty call, for the 90 minutes in this one, Swansea just didn't do enough to win it, and that's what's most disappointing from their aspect. Over their last 10 Championship matches now, they're averaging less than a goal per game, which for a side going for automatic promotion isn't good enough. We did mention this sort of tail off in form was on the horizon, with their underlying numbers not looking great going into the run-in for this season, but to lose 3 consecutive matches in the fashion that they have, I thought that the international break might have come at a decent time for Swansea for them to have a bit of a reset, but it was the same sort of patterns of mistakes which they're making at the moment, which has ultimately led to another defeat. For Birmingham, pretty much the perfect weekend for them, with both Rotherham and Coventry dropping points, puts them up to 20th in the table. They've still got a fair bit to do between now and the end of the season, but all things considered, big weekend for them. And then as our last game of the weekend to go over, we had Huddersfield holding Brentford to a 1-1 draw, the 3rd consecutive draw now for Brentford in the Championship, dropping points to Derby, Forest and now Huddersfield. It has given Watford quite a bit of leeway in the race for automatic promotion. It was a bit of a disaster of a start really, a real mix-up at the back between David Raya and Rusalev. In the end, the defender goes to clear the ball, actually pass it into midfield. It's a really poor decision though. Lewis O'Brien's then presented with the opportunity. David Raya sort of left in no man's land, but fair play to O'Brien, because he completely wrong foots the goalkeeper, puts it back on his near side, and yeah, a bit of a calamity of a start, to be honest with you. But from then on, Brentford reacted fairly well. They had some nice moves going forward, a couple of penalty shouts in this game, which on another day could have been given. Sorensen gets Brentford back into the game after an unbelievable goal line clearance from Naby Sarr, ultimately for Huddersfield just to concede a few minutes later. But Huddersfield still had a couple of chances here and there on the break, but you can probably see by the match stats to the side of me who the team was that was really going for this one. You know, Ivan Toney had a decent chance where he hit the post. They were, you know, committing bodies forward, but ultimately came up short in the end. Credit to Huddersfield though for grinding out the point in this one, because it's the sort of game where I do feel like maybe 2 months ago Brentford do win this game, and 2 months ago Huddersfield probably lose this game. So each side currently going in a bit of a different direction from where they were, yeah, like I say, a couple of months ago. But Huddersfield themselves could have very easily had the penalty in the second half for themselves, but for Brentford now, that now means that Watford have established a 9-point gap on both Brentford and Swansea. Now Brentford and Swansea do still have games in hand, but that's going to take some doing to undo that now, isn't it? Well guys, there are all the matches from this weekend. Do get your thoughts on them in the comments down below. In terms of my result of the weekend, I'm going to give that one to Birmingham. 1-0 against Swansea. Absolutely massive result for their season, and could be a real momentum shifter for these final few matches now and their bid for survival. Goal of the weekend, we had some really nice ones scored. I myself am going to give it to Emi Buendia. I thought his goal against Preston was absolutely fantastic, to shift the ball onto his left foot and beautifully bend it into the bottom corner. Iverson had no chance, and yeah, just an overall great player, isn't he? So like I say, do get all your thoughts in the comments down below. Now though, let's head into my Monday score predictions. So starting out at the Riverside, we got Middlesbrough going up against Watford. Now, Borough's top 6 hopes did take quite the blow on Friday with that loss against Bournemouth, and Watford just continue to grind out these results, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar sort of occurrence in this one. Don't get me wrong, on paper this is a pretty tough matchup for Watford, because Borough can always throw a spanner in the works. Having said that though, I'm going to back them for a 2-0 away victory. Blackburn up against Bournemouth, quite similar. Bournemouth are the team playing with much more momentum at the moment, and Blackburn just don't seem to be themselves whatsoever. I'm going to go 2-1 Bournemouth in that game. Coventry up against Bristol City. Now Bristol City are a really tough side to put your finger on, but one thing that you do have to give them a bit of credit for is their away record has actually been decent lately. And with Coventry's lack of of goals. I'm going to go 2-0 Bristol City in that game. Luton going up against Barnsley. Interesting matchup. Barnsley wanting to get back to winning ways as soon as possible, especially now with Bournemouth really breathing down their necks. I will back them for that, but only just. I'm going to go 2-1 Barnsley in that game. Forest going up against QPR is an interesting matchup, especially if Forest take the lead. I think they'll make it really tough for QPR, but credit to QPR. I thought they were excellent over the weekend so far, you know, playing with a real spark about them going forward at this point in time, but Forest can be a tough nut to crack. I'm going to go for a 1-1 in that game. Reading up against Derby is an interesting matchup because Reading are really hoping to shift their momentum around. You know, they've got some really tough matches coming up, and if they want to have any sort of hopes of finishing in the top 6 with those games around the corner, I think they need 3 points from this game. Lucas Jal needs to get his mojo back about him. I'll back Reading for this one, but sort of reluctantly, because with the way that Derby played over the weekend as well, yeah, that one really could go either way. I will go 2-1 Reading though, but reluctantly. Next up then to Rotherham up against Wycombe, a massive game in Rotherham's season. They want to continue to chip away at the teams above them, and still with these games in hand, a game up against Wycombe here is absolutely massive in their survival bid this season. You know, we'll ultimately see by the end of the year how big that penalty miss against Millwall will be. I'll just edge Rotherham, but I wouldn't rule out Wycombe in that game. I'll go 1-0 to the home side though. Stoke up against Millwall has a similar sort of low score feel to it. Wouldn't be surprised if this is a 1-0 either way or a 0-0. Just gonna edge Stoke for this one, maybe with a Nick Powell goal or something like that. I'll go 1-0 to the home side. Swansea up against Preston's an interesting one because, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Preston did get a little bit lucky to get something against Norwich. You know, like we mentioned before on another day, Teemu Pukki could have had about 5 goals, but Swansea aren't exactly playing like a side who's going for automatic promotion at the moment. They have been fairly poor. I'm going to go for a draw in that one. I'm going to go for a 1-1. Could very well go either way. Sheff Wed up against Cardiff. Cardiff need to get back to winning ways if they want to establish themselves back in that top 6 race. But I've just got a bit of a gut feeling that Wednesday may be another bit of a stumbling block here for Cardiff. I remember they did lose to them on the opening day of the season, didn't they? I'm going to go for a draw in that game. I'm going to say 1-1. Into Tuesday's games, we then got Brentford going up against Birmingham. Now, Brentford, in spells lately, haven't actually been playing all too badly. Having said that, they've not been getting the results to go along with those performances lately, and Birmingham, an absolutely huge win last time out against Swansea. Having said that, I'm gonna edge Brentford in this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if this one ended as another draw, with them, you know, playing quite well but not finishing their chances. I'll go 2-1 Brentford, but yeah, Birmingham under Lee Bowie are a bit of a different proposition at this point in time. And then finally we got Norwich going up against Huddersfield. Now, Huddersfield away from home haven't quite been as solid as they have been at home lately, but a good result for them last time out nonetheless. And Norwich will feel probably a little bit aggrieved actually that they didn't win against North End with the quality of chances they created. So I think they put that right in this one and win it 2-1. As you can see to the side of me though, guys, there are my score predictions for I see happening over Monday and in Tuesday's games as well. So do get your thoughts in the comments down below and get yourself onto the prediction leaderboard. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. So thank you so much for watching. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. Check out the Patreon, link to that is down below. But apart from that, thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.